So man, this is what gets me super excited, is innovation. And I love it when they're making things better and beefier and stronger and to do more. And that is exactly what REDI Driver has told us they've done, is they've made a heavier duty machine that is able to pound harder and faster. So we're gonna see how it does against the one that we've continually tested, and that is the Rhino GPD-45, or what they now call the Multipro XA. A reminder, the Multipro XA has the extended anvil so that we can get on the channel posts. As we've done in the past videos, we're gonna drive a 2 3/8, how long it takes to get to 3 feet, and then if one of them stops, we'll put the other driver on that post and see if it can continue on down. Because remember, about 2 feet down there, there is a ton of river rock and cobble that is pretty tough for these drivers to make it through. So usually they can get through it, but it takes a lot of time. Then we'll pound the channel post, and we're just gonna see which one does a better job and does it quicker. Just looking at the revisions, I noticed that this is a lot larger than their previous versions. If you go back and look at those videos, now they've got this different cup to fit our channel posts as well. So they sent this to us. It is not for free. We had to pay for this. This is not sponsored by them, to be very, very clear. They just thought it'd be really cool if we did a pound off, and since we sell them as an alternative to the Rhino, we told them that we would do that. I think maybe they are using the Honda GX50 instead of the 35, which is still currently the motor being run on the Rhino. I don't know if that's going to make a whole lot of difference. It probably adds just a touch of weight. I don't know what that's going to matter in pounding. Like if the motor's more powerful, has more cc's, we're still basically just spinning a piston. I don't know how that's going to help us, to be honest with me. I'm curious whether it really makes a difference. I think this is more of a sealed system now, which is another thing that they're trying to compete against the Rhino. Now Rhino's got their sealed gasket system down here, so hopefully you don't lose any grease, but it's an O-ring and things like that wear out, and that grease gets hot and warm, and we still fight that a little bit, but not as bad as we did before they had their gasketless version. So I'd like to see how they perform. And to help us with this, we're gonna have shop guy extraordinaire, Nicholas. So he will run one machine, I'll run one. I'm gonna put you on the new machine, okay, just because it should perform the best. Like, it's the freshest, it's brand new. The only thing I'm gonna tell you is just pull down firmly on the handles as you go. We're not gonna worry about plumbs. This is all about speed and who can get it the deepest. Let's fire these things up and see what they can do. You ready? All right, go. In all fairness, I was watching this and they were very, very even all the way through the clay. I mean, I was looking over and it was almost identical. It wasn't until we hit the rock and then that one got ahead and then mine fell behind and I had to break through some rocks, and then when I did that, I was able to get mine to depth and he isn't yet. Honestly, we don't know. One could hit a bigger rock or a rock harder to break. There's those factors. So what I want to do now, just give it a really good fair comparison. If the Rhino can get this one down now, and I did lose a handle, so maybe you can call Taylor and have him bring over a channel lock. There's a screw that goes up in here and those vibrate loose. So use Loctite on these. When you put those together, it makes it a little bit easier because the vibration really wreaks havoc on all these bolts. And to be very clear, this vibrated loose because this has been well used. This is a well-loved machine, not brand new like this one. The handles, I know that these tend to break. I do like the metal hoop style of this a little bit better. Both of them are sprung-loaded handles. They use a little different spring system, but operate much the same. These handles I think are a little bit larger, especially where they pass through this. This is a little beefier than this is. Now that they've got this bigger throat, these are much more comparable. And I think the anvil here is a solid anvil, whereas on this one it's shaped more like a valve on an engine. So it's maybe a little more prone to breaking. I'm not sure. I doubt you're ever going to break an anvil. I've never seen anybody break an anvil on one of these because it's a solid piece of steel. We noticed too, Nicholas picked them both up and he said, wow, clearly this one's heavier. I think this one weighs in at like 50 some pounds. This one here is definitely lighter than this one, and that will make a difference on how much it pounds because you're using that energy to get that post in the ground. So a little bit of extra weight is probably more important than horsepower. Honestly, I think that's also why we see the hydraulic pounders work better, is because they're just heavier. And heavy is what creates that kinetic energy that allows that post to get into the ground. So Weight is our friend in this case, unless you have to lift it up, and then it's not always our friend. Okay, let's get this handle tightened up, and then we'll try the Rhino on that other post.
You can't.
So we were able to get everything switched out. We've got these all tightened up, and I did flip this handle around to be on the same side as the motor, allowing us to drive things flush. We went to put this on this post, and it did deform this post a little bit, and so this one will not fit on. We have some extra room here, but not that much room. So we're gonna cut this off flush, just so I can get this driver on it, and we'll keep driving. Okay, I think we're all ready to go, but before we go, let's have a little break for our sponsors. This is where you insert the sound of crickets. Okay, we're good to go. So there you have it. It did it. And I was pretty sure you're stalled out. I was watching it pretty close to see if we're getting anything.
Yep.
I'm gonna sound the round pipe. We're gonna call it a win for the Rhino still. The Rhino, that extra weight, I think, is probably what's making the difference, to be very, very honest. But I wonder how the anvils are gonna perform when we go to the channel post, because what we've seen in the past is that on the channel posts, the REDI can actually drive them faster using the old driver. So I'm wondering if that will hold true using the new updated driver, or if it'll do even better than it did last time. Only one way to find out. Ready?
Yep.
Ready, Mark, get set, go! On this one, he started out quite a bit behind, but caught up a lot in that 2 to 3 foot mark, a ton, and I only beat you by an inch. That's about as close as a head-to-head matchup, I think, as it gets. I would say this is a very, very even. Maybe the Rhino by just a slight bit, but the REDI is also a great machine. I think they've made some improvements on it, and it definitely performed better than the lighter duty REDI DOT package that we have for sale. So we'll get these listed on the website. You guys will have this as an option, and then you guys can make your own informed decision on which one you think might work better for you. I will say I'm better at driving posts than you. Your post is really crooked.
Yeah.
It's really bad.
This is the first time I've done it.
We won't hold that against you. So for me, the weight difference really doesn't matter a whole lot when I'm doing it. People a lot of times will have problems with this, but the way I like to carry this is like this on my shoulder. And I wear a pair of gloves because this gets a little warm. So this way I'm keeping all the weight off of my back, and then I can lean down with my knees, pick up my post, aim it in here, slide this on top of it, and then stand it up and just be one person. That's the easiest way to do this. 2 people. What we've noticed is if you use 2 people to do this, it allows for the bottom to kick out really bad, and that just becomes a hazard, and so I don't like to do that at all. If anybody's gonna help me, all I want them doing is putting their foot on the bottom of this post so it can't kick out. But typically in grass and stuff, it grabs pretty good, and I don't have to worry about that if I'm just solo. So that's the way I do this when I'm driving post by myself, so I can do it and I just have a level hanging on my belt. Just makes it a nice, easy one-man operation. Now keep in mind, this driver is set up specifically to drive these channel posts. The chances that you'll be able to go down to your local rental shop and rent one of these that'll be able to drive these channel posts for the wood fence is not great. So you may have to set concrete instead, but if you can do it, this is a really great way to do it. So based on my experience, what I expect is these 2 round posts will come out quite easily, because the shape actually is one of the things that benefits us. This adds a lot more surface area and places for the soil to bind up, especially in between here. And these are gonna be way, way harder to pull out. But even though these will come out pretty easily, they are in there extremely tight, and these posts are going to bend well before that ground ever has a problem. And that's why concrete doesn't matter, is because it's all about getting that stuff in there good and tight and firm and compacted ground. As expected, while it offered resistance, it was not hard to pull up, but luckily gravity doesn't work like that. I've never had posts magically fall out of the ground ever in my entire life, so that's not something we're extremely concerned about, as long as they're good and tight. You can see we crushed it a little bit, so it took quite a bit of power. I don't know what we have, but this machine can lift about 2,000 pounds on the forks, so it still took quite a bit of force to be able to pull that post out. And I've had some that we've driven out here. Maybe I'll put a clip. I think we have a clip of it, and we can barely get it out with our skid steer. So these things grab very, very, very well. Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. Look at that. I don't know if you can catch this, but you see how much that fork is bending? That's more what I'm talking about. That is how much resistance can actually come into play on trying to get these posts out, which is why we're able to drive 4-inch pipe for cantilever gates and not have them pull out, which those take a ton of stress. All that weight sitting, trying to pull those posts out all the time. And we've done it, our shop in Florida was done with driven posts in Florida sand, 6 feet deep, and they have not moved even a little bit. That's how well this works. And basically what I can say is buy the driver that you think is going to work best for you. And as one added tip, don't go with the latest and greatest all the time just because it's out and it's new. That may work in this case. If you're looking for a REDI driver, we're happy to sell you one. But if you're looking for a Rhino driver, we're also happy to sell you one of those. There's many different drivers to do many different things and not one perfect driver for everything. The other thing people ask me is, what would you go with? Well, I go with Rhino, and the reason I go with Rhino is because that's what we started with. And the other thing I want uniformity in all our drivers across our whole company, because if one goes down, that means I've got parts, pieces, and I know how to work on them. I don't have to learn how to work on 5 different types of drivers. So we try and keep it pretty uniform and use the same thing across the entire company in all of our locations, just for simplicity's sake. And that's what I would recommend you do. If you start out with REDI and it's working good for you, don't change. If you use US Hammer and you start out with that, don't change unless it's not working for you anymore. Same thing with Rhino. Keep it uniform across your whole company, because then you can use all the spare parts. That's what I'd recommend. Huge thanks to Nicholas, our shop guy, for helping me out today. And as always, I'm Mark with SWI here in Wyoming, and I hope you have a good dang day.